How's it going, Critter Family? I hope you all are doing well. Today we are going over a video, again shot by myself, working with a pair of pulling pugs. Alliteration, or a tongue twister. So I have worked with these pugs before. This little one right here is Miss Rin. She's super sweet, super tiny, and just a gorgeous little girl. And her brother, you'll see in the second half of this video, is Mr. Ruffalo. This is just a quick little shot of me working with dogs that really tend to pull. I always like to point out that they may only pull with myself. They may not pull at all with their parents. So that's not, this doesn't necessarily mean that their parents, don't work with them on a consistent daily basis. They've done, a marvelous job with these pugs. Excellent job. So this is just, when I'm watching them or taking them out, pug sitting, or I'm just taking it out for a little walk, for the parents. So I'm just going to show you, an example of when I have a really hard pulling dog, what I do. So let's get started with this. So I do have, normally they have a nylon leash. I just hooked my leather leash up to her today, when this is being shot, which is not in 2018. I'm just using this because when they do pull on the nylon, I feel like I have a better grip of being able to keep, hold on to this leash, and since Adonis isn't using it anymore, rest in peace, little boy, we're able to use his leash for this purpose. So for me, it's just to be able to teach them to, I'm just personally working with them and teaching them to give into pressure. The regular nylon leash, I feel like I don't have as good of a grip on it. Although, I'm not keeping them on a tight leash. As you can see here, there's a nice big leash. She probably has about 4 feet of leash here. And we're just going out here walking. And she's doing great right here. And she starts to really pull. And that was it. She pulled. I applied the slightest bit of pressure. And she immediately stopped. We didn't even have to stop walking. So when I talk about pressure and release with the leash, when you're doing it, it shouldn't be noticeable. You're never going to notice me popping or jerking or waiting for this dog to get to the end of the leash and they hurt themselves, or they just hit a brick wall. Like, that is never my intention. I'm very, very careful about making sure to slow the dog down so they don't just go from a loose leash to an instantly tight leash. The owners have a leash that has elastic, I think, like a bungee type cord at the bottom half of the leash, which is very, very nice for dogs who really are, who lunge a lot. At the same time, that can also teach a dog to pull against it, but that's not necessarily so in this case. But that could be very good for it, especially if you have a dog that is tied to a fixed, say, to a stake in the ground, or they're tethered. I would always suggest having some kind of a bungee cord type leash connected to a harness on them, and of course being supervised. We never want the dog to be alone, tied up to anything, because they can hurt themselves. But the bungee would be able to take away the brunt of the pressure, on them. But anyway, so here, when I'm walking her, it shouldn't be noticeable if I apply pressure. That's the goal, is to apply as little pressure as possibly needed, just to get the dog, no matter what size, to lean back in that direction. I instantly loosen, and I expect them to start pulling again. So here she's doing absolutely fantastic. She's doing awesome. I believe this was maybe in the afternoon, could have been in the morning, but either way, she's, these little guys have tons of energy. She wasn't tired out. We had just started our walk, so she has plenty of energy to go. She stopped there on her own. So when she really starts to dig in, which, a lot of dogs will learn that when they feel pressure, they either, find it, they push harder, or they just stop and they give in right away. So she has a habit, at least with myself, where she really digs her little toes in, and she really, really is a strong little dog. So right here, I'm still applying straight pressure on her, but I have learned that with these guys, that straight pressure really isn't going anywhere. So I end up taking a couple of steps back, bringing the dog with me. So here's a couple steps back. As soon as she starts following that leash, then I instantly release it and move back in the direction we're going. And I could probably give her a little bit more leash, but again, I didn't want her to, get too far ahead if it went loose too tight. I wanted to have a little bit more control. but she still did a good job. So I'm just showing you the little leash lock there. And then she's, going back. She's allowed to sniff. She's allowed to look at things. I have no problem. Adonis and I would spend, 3 or 4 minutes sometimes, especially on this particular bush that he was sniffing on. But we decided to move on. And there is a small, 2 or 3 year old child in that yard over there that I believe that Miss Rin gets a little excited about. So we moved across the street. She pulled a bit much to go to that bush, but it's not on the dog, it's on the human. So I let her pull a bit much, to get to the bush. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. I don't need to go correct anything, especially since I'm the one who walked too fast to get over there. This is a very, low traffic neighborhood area. So, it's a dead end going this way behind us because that's where the apartment complex is. But either way, she's doing fine. She sees that little person, little kiddo. I try to get her attention. She really starts digging in. So we back up a couple steps and then we go right back to it. So I could certainly be using some treats as, rewards. But usually when it comes to walking, I like to use the continuation of the walk or sniff or, releasing the pressure, mainly as the dog's reward. I feel like the environment is more rewarding for the dog or just as rewarding than if I had a treat for her. So regardless of a very, very food motivated dog or not, I generally like to use the walk as their reward that, hey, we if we need to use treats, that's totally fine. Especially if we have a dog that is, reactive. That's a whole different can of worms and a whole different, training session. So she was really, really digging in there. She gets really excited. So I'm taking a couple steps back and then we start going again. And she likes to go behind me a lot. So sorry for the camera wiggling there a little bit. So we decide to, I think, cross the street here again in a minute. Maybe not. So we're going back a couple steps. She can go back and sniff. And as long as she's on a nice loose leash, we're going to keep going. She's on a little mission. She starts really digging in. And, it looks and feels, like I don't want the leash to get that tight. And I don't want to have to, apply even this, this much pressure. I want to be able to just, use a finger's worth, but because she's very strong and because with me, she just associates, pulling and getting excited. I'm not her everyday person, so she doesn't have that bond with me where she says, hey, you're really fun. I want to hang out with you. She's going to pull more. So I don't like having to really apply this much pressure going back on her, but I make sure that, there's no, if I felt like there was any kind of major discomfort with her or she were showing any signs of stress, I would completely discontinue this and I would, bring a treat pouch with me or make sure that, we can work a different way. She seems to just be on that mission to keep moving forward. And we've been, just practicing this. So this seems to work okay for us, but I'm always keeping in mind, the dog's comfort level and safety. And so if, I'm making sure that she's, I don't want her to become stressed from this. And from, what I've seen when interacting with her, she hasn't shown any stress signs. Of course I could be wrong. I could be missing them. With pugs that, I'm used to dogs with, pointy ears and I'm used to a dog with a curly tail, but this little miss, seems like she's, just out here sniffing, having a good time. And the battery on my GoPro was going to die soon, so I cut her clip here just a little bit short, but we did go for the full block, walk around, and then the second half you're going to see me taking Mr. Ruffalo out. But we're going out, and her nice little, she's walking the little jig, she's walking her little wiggly butt, and there's Mr. Ruffalo. So he's on a little mission too. He's starting to pull just a little bit, but then he starts to slow down. And even then, I was applying just, my hand's not even moving, and I'm just applying, the pinky word, a pinky finger's worth of pressure just on the bottom of that leash, just to say, hey, slow down a little bit. When you do this, this leash is going to really shorten or loosen up for you, not shorten. You get more slack, and it's just this is just, the reason why I do this is because this is not the only way you have to do this by any means. I will leave a link to Kiko Pup's tutorial to the pressure and release game. The reason I like to teach this is because if the dog happens to, anybody can walk the dog and not have to worry about getting tangled or anybody getting hurt. And the dog, if this leash were to get caught up anywhere, these little guys aren't going to hurt themselves because they panic because the leash is tight and they're uncomfortable. So they're not going to hurt themselves. It makes it easier for, the owners in case, say, God forbid you injure yourself, or, like for me, when I could take in the groceries and walk Adonis in one hand, or I could, have a sprained ankle and I could still walk him just fine. But that's just us. So, if you don't care, about this, then, that's totally fine. Or you don't wish to teach it in such a way, that's totally fine too. I just want them to learn that when you feel this pressure, move into it, and, if there's a human that's consistent with it, then they will make sure that leash loosens. So he's doing awesome here. He's a very good little man. Again, I see them with their people all the time, and they're awesome, super loose leash all the time. So, when they're excited, when they're, with somebody new, they just get excited and they want to run ahead and pull. And so he sees, there is a loose dog in the neighborhood, a little bit further ahead, a good few yards, couple dozen yards from us, up ahead. So he has not seen them just yet. Look at that little face. I love these guys. They're so cute. So he caught a little sniff. But there is going to be a dog, further ahead over here, which causes him to really start pulling and lunging. And then at that point, my camera just died. And so I just backed him up and we walked right back home. We didn't finish this block this way. We went the other way. So this is where we're crossing because the little kiddo is over there. I don't think he really cares about the kiddo. But I move him over just to make sure that he's not going to, start reacting, or the little kid doesn't get scared. So there he was able to go to the bush there with, a much looser leash, which was very nice. Gets to go smell the bush, gets to go pee on it. And then we keep on walking. And I'm always, because I'm a big stickler for checking the, heat index and checking the black pavement, because it's very dark. I made sure to check it, with the back of my hand and holding it there. I can hold it there for, several seconds, like 20, 30 seconds, and it didn't feel too hot. So, I'm very aware of these little guys that don't do well in the heat anyway. So this was not a very hot day. I always just see sun and shadow, and I just think, knowing that this was filmed in the summertime, I'm always worried about going out and burning, the little doggies' little feet. So we're just going across the street here again, and he starts pulling, and this is probably right around where he sees this dog coming. Good little man for looking at me. He sees this little dog coming from across the street, and they ran across the street to another person's yard. They are an owned dog. They're not a stray dog. Somebody does own them, but they get out very often. So we're walking. He's just being a good little man. And then he starts pulling. And yes, I could very well, be calling his name and doing all that, and I could still teach him that way. I still like to teach, in addition to that, just the teaching them to not fight the pressure, just out of a safety thing, they can learn to do. So even coming back, he was, they really fight it even going in this direction, so they fight it from going forward if the pressure is being pulled. If they're pulling into the pressure and it's behind them or forward, they fight it a lot, which, I don't blame them. So I don't want to, cause him to go into fight or flight, or any animal to go into fight or flight. So he shakes off there. He sees another dog. I'm really trying to get him to and that's where the camera dies. So I'm just trying to get him on as loose of a leash as I can. And yeah, I try to use as little pressure as possible. And, sometimes that can translate to, it seems like you're really pulling back on them, and they kind of they fight so much that they finally trip and give into it. And I don't like that. I try to use, again, like I've said a million times, as little pressure as possible. And I am always trying to make sure and be aware of their comfort level. So he comes in, he's just shaking off a little bit, and then he sees a little dog and he goes, a little crazy. And I have to bring him back at this point because he's just going to go crazy, this little dog. And that dog is loose, they're not on a leash, so that was just a quick little video of that. There will be more videos coming up when I have Miss Jeannie. She was in the last video that you saw. She'll be coming to stay with me for 2 weeks for pet sitting. And so I will be doing the same thing with her, teaching her to be able to walk on a nice loose leash, teaching her a number of other basic obedience behaviors, and maybe she'll even get to come play with these little guys. You know, we'll see if we have a little puppy play date. But anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Let me know what you think of this video. Say hi to your little critters. Be sure to give them some kind of loving for me. And until next time, stay positive.